Oh, well, welcome back, everybody. We're in the diving ducks now. And diving ducks are a whole different set of duck species. They like different habitat. They like different foods. They're all around just a different duck than most of our dabbing ducks. A lot of our diving ducks have a more of a monochrome kind of black and white pattern. They're not as colorful. They are colorful, but not all the elaborate colors. They're mostly patterns of black and white. So what we're going to start off with here is a really common diving duck you might see here in the shores of Lake Erie. There's your Goldeneye. Really, a lot of your diving, I think, just are cute little ducks. Their patterns that are black and white help them blend in with their big bodies of water they live on. You won't see these ducks on ponds or small bodies of water. They like big reservoirs, big impoundments of water, or the Great Lakes. You'll see them in big groups with other diving ducks. A lot of times this time of year, if you see them around here, they're feeding on fish in the lakes around here. They'll eat just about anything. Like I said, diving ducks dive underwater. They'll chase down little fish. They'll eat a lot of snails, mollusks, clams, little mackerel inverts, little midge larvae living on the bottom of the lakes. Again, this guy right here is a Goldeneye. The best way to identify him is not just by his golden eye, but this white patch right here. And this is a male Goldeneye. But again, the white patch here, the all black head, the pure white belly, nice black back. Again, the Goldeneye. And some of the diving ducks can get a little confusing, and I'll show you some comparisons here between other duck species. When we get a little further along here in our diving duck section. Again, but this is the male Goldeneye. Again, identifiable that white patch right here in front of the nose. No other diver has that little white patch, kind of like right there, that little circle. So again, this is the male Goldeneye. Well, here's another guy you'll see hanging out with Goldeneyes a lot of times. This is the bufflehead, the North American bufflehead. He has this nice white patch back here. You remember the Goldeneye had a patch down here, a little circle. This guy doesn't. This is the North American bufflehead. These are a small little duck too. That nice white patch here. Again, you see that all white belly. Again, that all black back, just like on the Goldeneye. What that is a lot of times is if you're a fish and you're a diving duck and you're in a big body of water, and when fish look up, they see white, so they have a nice white belly. And if you're a predatory bird looking down on that body of water, you'll see this nice black color that will help them blend in with the water. So a lot of your diving ducks are black and white, just trying to blend in on big, huge expanses of open water. But again, this is the bufflehead. This white here, a lot of times this will be a little bit, the males will have it stuck up a little bit, it'll be a little more crusted up, but a bufflehead has a white patch behind, the Goldeneye is in front, but the rest of the body is pretty similar in coloration to the Goldeneye, as you can see here, in the back there, side by side, identifying. Goldeneye has a little white spot, bufflehead has this nice white crest behind the eye. And then these are males of the species. So, all right, our next diver we'll dive into here is the greater Scalp. Again, black and white, as you can see, that same pattern of black and white, all divers kind of have. Identifying features in this guy is the black head, black front, black goes back to about the back of the neck right here, and the white on the back, this gray color on the back here. This is a greater Scalp. There's also a lesser Scalp. Lesser Scalp is going to be a little smaller than the greater Scalp. Lesser Scalp is on the bottom. You can see the head has a much more up and down profile, not as gradual from the bill to the top of the head as in with the greater Scalp. The black also goes a little further back on the lesser Scalp than the greater Scalp too. So, but still, this is a confusing one. A lot of birds out there get confused between the lesser and greater Scalp. We don't really have a lesser Scalp mount here. We do have the greater Scalp, but you can see the difference between the two different species. Very similar, but different species, greater and lesser Scalp. These guys nest up in Canada, far north of Canada, Yukon territories, up around the Hudson Bay. They spend their summers up in the Arctic, on the far northeast and far northwest coast of the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. So they spend their winters way far north, where there are no trees, pretty much in the tundra, and nesting in pothole lakes in the tundras, and along lakes and rivers up that way. Our next diving duck here, which is this is an interesting one we threw in. You don't see these too much here at Sandy Ridge. You won't really ever see them here at Sandy Ridge. These ducks do show up in Ohio. This is called a Longtail Duck, hence the long tail. The old name was Old Squaw, traditionally. You used to call them an Old Squaw. And these are Longtail ducks. Where you'll see these in Ohio is in the wintertime or in the early spring on Lake Erie. They'll be in big rafts out on Lake Erie, groups of, sometimes they can get up to the hundreds. But these are a duck of the high Arctic. These guys nest about as far north as you can go. So in the summertime, they're at the Arctic Circle, swimming around, ice floating in the ocean. These ducks nest up in the, Yukon territories, up in Nunavut. You know what Nunavut is in Alaska, in Canada. It's a province in Canada. It's very far north, mostly a lot of islands. These are ducks of the high Arctic, and they can dive deep underwater, and they'll feed on the subsurface on the bottom, eating snails, clams, little insect life, little tiny fish. Well, these are ducks of the true open water. These ducks don't generally come near shore at all unless they're really kind of nesting in their springtime and having their babies. Well, these are ducks of the open ocean. And a lot of times if you're out on Lake Erie in a boat early in the spring, you'll be out 15, 20 miles in Lake Erie and you see these guys sitting out there in the lake waiting to fly north from wherever they're overwintering. This is a really neat duck. This is a long-tailed duck. Not a duck you see very common in Ohio, but you can see them on Lake Erie. Beautiful duck. Another diving duck, which is not a true duck, but it's related, is a hooded merganser. Hooded merganser, you might know some very identifiable features on this guy. The male, this is a male. That big white crest, this big mohawk he has. You can kind of see that. And that long, skinny bill. Unlike most ducks, these guys are strictly fish eaters. Some other little animal life, but they mostly eat fish. You'll find them all throughout Ohio. They nest in Ohio in the summertime like wood ducks do, and mallards nest in Ohio in the summertime too. Well, these guys will nest here in Ohio, a lot of times in tree cavities along rivers. They like to nest along rivers and tree cavities, so we've got big sycamore trees along a river with holes in them. A lot of times these guys will nest in those tree cavities. Historically, their numbers were very low due to deforestation of a lot of the woods and forests in North America and lower Canada where they nest. But their numbers have increased dramatically, mostly due to effective wood duck nesting boxes. You Mary mentioned we put up boxes for wood ducks to nest in. These guys also nest in tree cavities. So a lot of times when you put up wood duck nesting boxes, you'll inadvertently attract hooded mergansers. And here at Sandy Ridge, we have a couple pairs of hooded mergansers that nest in the wood duck boxes every year. Very striking, very beautiful duck. Male. Could be confused with a bufflehead, I guess, a little bit, but if you look at that bill, mergansers all have that long, narrow, thin bill for catching fish. The female of this species is a rusty red brown. She doesn't have this white crest. She's all a rusty red brown. Same body shape, same plan, same kind of poofy hairdo here, but she'll be a rusty red brown color, not a variation of black and white. Again, this is a hooded merganser. Another good diving duck. It might look like a dabbling duck to you actually, but it's actually a diving duck family. This is a canvasback. Canvasback's identifiable feature, red head, black cape around the neck right here, and on their back they have a white, it's kind of a white-gray, whitish colored patch, which canvasback, a piece of canvas laid across their back, so canvasback. The long bill, it tapers up really high and it comes down. These guys nest pretty far, canvasbacks, I think pretty far north into Canada, mostly north and South Dakota, northwards to Alaska. Their population is actually declining. Like I mentioned, with a lot of your prairie pothole nesting duck species, like to nest in little ponds and lakes in the prairies and fields of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, North South Dakota. They're just not, the habitat's just not there much for them anymore. The wetlands have all been drained a lot of times for agriculture. But their populations are actually on a kind of a decline. We do see lots of these guys though on the Great Lakes, especially Lake Erie in the wintertime. As the lakes continue to freeze over, you go down to nearshore parts of Lake Erie where there's still some open water, you'll see huge rafts of these guys. I mean, big rafts. They could be, sometimes you'll see rafts of the top photo here is a picture of canvasbacks. But you see how many there are. They'll form huge rafts of hundreds of individuals, sometimes thousands of individuals on the shores of Lake Erie in the late winter. There's open water. And while they're there, a lot of times they're eating fish. They're eating shad, emerald shiners there near shore. Most of these guys, most of a duck's diet is going to be predominantly plant life and small insect life. But if you have a huge abundance of fish somewhere near the surface, a lot of these guys will utilize it. And canvasbacks, I've watched them gobble down shad out of Lake Erie like candy. They don't generally eat a lot of fish, but a lot of these, some of these ducks like this guy here, will actually take down and hunt some pretty good sized fish. Nice sized big shad and big emerald shiners. So you don't see a lot of these in Ohio, except for in the wintertime a lot of times on the shores of Lake Erie. This guy can be easily confused with another duck, the redhead. And you can see here, the redhead duck is on top, and the canvasback is on the bottom. You see some differences there. The canvasback is much more white on the back. The redhead has a much more gray back. They both have the red heads, but also look at that bill shape and size. Identifying a lot of ducks, what you want to look at is the head. How long is the bill? How steep is the forehead from the bill to the top of the head? You look at the canvasback, that big, long, tapering bill up to the top of the head, which is right here. That's a canvasback on the bottom. The top is a redhead. That bill is much more stubby, doesn't kind of extend out as far. And redheads too, another similar duck to canvasback, similar kind of habitat they nest in, very similar areas. Their numbers kind of too have been wavering up and down. Again, this due to a lack of a lot of time nesting habitat. But again, redhead on top, canvasback on the bottom. Another shot of the canvasback here. Look at that big, long bill. This big, long, tapering bill will tell you it's a canvasback every time and not a redhead. All right. Another little interesting diving duck here we have in Ohio, and these are some, I think they're just fun little ducks. They're just cool little ducks. They remind me of a rubber ducky in your bathtub. It's a ruddy duck, R-U-D-D-Y, ruddy duck. And this is a duck in the family of stiff-tailed ducks. You look at their feathers and their tailhead, these tail feathers are extremely stiff, very, very stiff. Most duck feathers, tail feathers are not this stiff. These help act like a little rudder in their water when they're swimming. These are a pretty prolific little diving duck. They nest mostly in the Great Plains states into the Rocky Mountains and up into Alaska. Their numbers are pretty stable. They're not as prolific as they once were historically, but they're quite prolific little duck. A lot of times you'll see these guys swimming with coots and other diving ducks. And when they sit in the water, they sit just like this, their tail straight up. So once you learn to identify a ruddy duck sitting in the water, it's hard to not identify it ever again when you see them. This is the erect tail feathers, the little rubber ducky shape to them, this little stumpy bill, thick and big for their body size. And then springtime, the males are absolutely gorgeous in this species. You see the top one there, he has that rusty red coloration on his body and that bright blue bill, the white cheeks. And again, your female is going to be down there in the middle photo. And this is what this guy is too, a female. But these are neat little ducks. They're very active swimmers. We have quite a few of these guys here at Sandy Ridge. They'll use a variety of habitats. They'll use small marshes and lakes. They'll use large bodies of water like the Great Lakes. They're probably a little prolific duck, very active feeding little duck. Like I said, most of your diving ducks are going to be a lot different than your dabbling ducks in the way they feed. But how diving ducks do feed is before they dive underwater, they pull their feathers really close to their body. They push all the air out of their feathers, and it enables them to swim down underwater. Dabbling ducks, they want that air under their feathers to help them stay buoyant, but dabbling ducks want to sink. They want to go under to chase food and find food, so they'll pull their feathers really close to their body, suck the feathers in, push all the air out, and they'll dive underwater. And ruddy duck is a great example of a diving duck. If you find them, you'll see them actively hunting, diving under the water. Our last little guy is kind of related to ducks. You'll see them with ducks a lot of times, is a pie-billed grebe. Very nondescript, not very elaborately colored little waterfowl here. A pie-billed grebe is identifiable. They have a black band around their bill. Kind of hard to see in this one, they have one. Also with grebes, things like coots, grebes, they have their feet far back in their body. Look how far back this guy's feet are. They're pretty much all the way at the back of his body. When you compare it to a duck, a normal duck's, their feet are in the middle of their body. Well, it helps a lot of things like grebe. It helps them swim. They're very efficient swimmers. They can dive underwater really quick. They can move around. They're very agile. But when it comes to getting on land, they're helpless. They really can't walk on land. If this guy were to land on land somewhere, he'd be stuck. They have to use, since their feet are so far back, they have to use their feet to run across the top of the water when they take off. Things like mallards and other ducks can lift straight up off the water, while your diving ducks have to run across the surface of the water to take off. And the grebe is a good example of that. A lot of times when they're getting to take off, this little piddle paddle sound they make across the top of the water as they fly off. But this is a pie-billed grebe. Grebes are also different than ducks. If you look at their feet, you can kind of see they have webbed toes. The toes each have webbing on each side, while a duck's foot has webbing from toe to toe throughout all the way across, while your grebes have really interesting feet. Same thing with coots. They have webbed toes. So interesting little feature about this waterfowl. This is a pie-billed grebe. There's also a couple other species of grebe here in Ohio. They're not as common, but for intro birding course, we'll focus on a pie-billed grebe. These guys are quite prolific. A lot of times when you see them, you'll see them from their head up. Most of their body, if they're hunting, they're actively feeding, their body will be underwater, and their head's just kind of sticking up. So if you come here, St. Ridge, and you see this little tiny brown duck with his body mostly underwater, and he's swimming and going up and down a lot, that'd be a pie-billed grebe. Well, all right, everybody, thank you very much. That's all the diving and dabbling ducks we have for you today. I'm going to turn you over to Linda here, and she's going to continue on with some more of your birding programs and give you a good description and rundown of what's going to happen soon.
All right, thank you again, Josh, for all the birding tips today with the dabbling and diving ducks. Appreciate that. And everybody, as you can see, there is so much to learn and know about these different duck species. We could probably do a 2-hour session just on the diving ducks themselves. So anyway, thank you again for joining us, and check our website for upcoming programs, and also then for the future upcoming basic bird identification class. Thank you.